Good morning, everyone. It's the Duchess of Monty Shit Show. Feels strange saying that because this isn't a Duchessy type video. But obviously I cannot give my real name because you never know who's looking. Sugary shites. Sorry about this. It is currently 6:10 a.m. on Wednesday morning. And the thing is, the sun is rising and it's right in front of me. So if I do this with my car, woo, hello. So I'm going to have to be in the cover of darkness for a little while. So this is a very different type of video. I like to give you glimpses occasionally into my private world. I just find as a YouTube content creator, I just feel that sometimes it's nice for you guys to see that there is more to me than just sarcastic Duchess. I just feel it's more relatable. You can see that I do have a life, I do have feelings, you know. And if you don't like that, you don't have to be interested in it. You can unsubscribe, you can just scroll on past every time you see something that you don't like. That's completely fine. But I do know there are a lot of you on here that are particular fans of my son Clark that you saw in the giveaway video. So today is a very big day for us. Was certainly for Clark. It's a very big day for him. Definitely a big day for me, which is why I'm up prior to 6 a.m. I'm still in my pyjama top, actually. Very nervous, very anxious, very excited. But if you have a child with any form of special needs or additional needs, or if you have one in your family, or if you know one, you know that things that you think are exciting or big things, that to them it causes a great deal of anxiety. So I'm very anxious on his behalf. I'm nervous for him. So before I get into why, let me just give you a bit of background about Clark. Oh, can I put that up a bit more? Just about. Let me give you a bit of background into Clark and why he's just the most amazing little man. He really is. Now, I have 3 children. I have a boy, nearly a man actually. I have a boy of coming up 17, and he's very shy. You'll never see him. You'll never see a picture of him, camera, video. He doesn't want any part of it, which is completely fine. I have a daughter who is nearly 14. Occasionally she might sneak onto one of my lives. It's not the first time she's done it. She's a bit of a am-dram. She's like me. She sings on stage. She loves musicals. She's my mini-me. She's sarcastic. So, she sometimes wants to be in the Duchess way of things. She sometimes doesn't. That's completely fine. And then you have Clark. He is the youngest. He is 11 and a half now. And he has literally been through so much. Oh, Duchess, don't get teary. I knew this would happen. Don't get teary. He's been through so much in the last 11 and a half years, and he is still smiling. He is still the happiest little lad, and he is just such an inspiration. Honestly, he is. And I couldn't be prouder of him. So let me give you a bit of background. I didn't have a very good pregnancy. I had swine flu, which back in 2010 was a really big thing here in England. I think I was about 6.5, 7 months pregnant, and I worked at the local hospital, and we were all, because swine flu was becoming a really big thing in England, and it was really concerning as well. Because I worked at the hospital, they were giving all the staff swine flu vaccinations, and in the vaccination there was a tiny element of the disease, which is obviously designed to build up your immunity to it. So can I do that? Yay, I can do that. So yeah, so they gave me the swine flu vaccination, and I said to the the department I worked in pathology, which deals with blood tests and urine tests and all that kind of thing. So across the hospital from where I worked was the maternity unit, so I went over to them and I said, is this swine flu vaccination safe for pregnant women? And the midwife team discussed it and spoke to consultants, and they came back to me and said, we honestly at this point do not know, but we would recommend you have it rather than not, because if someone came into the hospital with swine flu and you caught it, the consequences for you or your baby could be absolutely disastrous. So we recommend that you have the vaccination. So of course I had a couple of days of should I not, and then the hospital came back and said, look, you really have to have this because you work here, you've got to have it. Okay, so I had the vaccination done, and within an hour, 2 hours, I felt extremely unwell. So luckily, being at the hospital, it wasn't too much of a stretch to down tools. I left my workstation, and I said to my boss, look, I'm really not feeling well, can I just pop across to antenatal? Yep, no problem. And within minutes I was hooked up to a drip. I just felt so unwell, and it turns out that I don't know whether it was an adverse reaction to the swine flu vaccination or whether I did get swine flu. That's not clear, but I was extremely unwell, and I was in hospital, from memory, I was in hospital for around about 10 days. I was on the antenatal ward, and I was poorly, really poorly. So once I left work, once I left the hospital, I went back to work. I worked right up until quite close to when I was due, actually. I think I worked up to about 35, 36 weeks, and I got nervous because my first two children, my waters broke with my first son at very early, 29 weeks, my waters went, and I had to leave work immediately. They said, once your waters have gone, you can go into labour anytime, you must leave work. What happened? I left work at 29 weeks, and the eldest one held on until 9 days late. So I had 3 months of sitting at home waiting for a baby. Same thing with my daughter. My waters went at 27 weeks, and as you all know, that's not really a viable age. It is possible for a baby to survive at that age. It's unlikely, or if they do, that it's likely that they will have a lot of problems. So it's always very unsettling when things like that happen. So with my daughter, my waters went at 27 weeks. And what happened? She held on, and she had to be induced. They had to literally yank her out. She wasn't coming out. She was 11 days late. So I worked right up until about 35, 36 weeks with Clark. Got nervous. I thought, I've trusted my luck too much. I need to go home in case anything happens. Same thing. He was 9 days late. I don't know what. I must be so comfortable. These babies did not want to come out. So the birth was stressful for both myself and Clark. He got stuck. Well, actually, no, let's backtrack a little bit. My waters finally went at 7 days late. And I text my ex-husband, and I said, it's happened. You need to come home. Could be any time. So he raced home. He worked near Brighton, which is I'd say about half an hour along the coast from here. So he rushed home, and my mum, who, bless her, she's no longer here, but My mum came down to look after the 2 older ones, make sure that the bag was packed, and it was panic stations, and nothing. Not even a contraction, nothing. And this was, my waters went about 3:15 in the afternoon. It was actually as I was walking my eldest son home from school. The teacher came out to me and she said, you don't look very well, are you okay? I said, no, I'm fine. I'm 7 days overdue now, I'm bored. I'm not being funny, but... And she said, oh, well, you just be careful because you don't look very well. I'm like, no, I'm fine, I'm good. I think I probably got about 10 steps away and then, gosh, my waters went right in the middle of the school playground. So I had to trudge home in wet leggings. Oh, that was fun. So yes, when I got home, it was panic stations. Everyone rallied round. No contractions, nothing. It got to Friday night, nothing. It got into Saturday, nothing, not even a twinge, nothing. Getting a bit concerned by this point. So we went into the hospital. We kind of made ourselves go in because the hospital were like, no, it's fine, stay at home, it's fine. Now I know that, because I spent some time in the antenatal unit working as a receptionist, and you get to hear things and, you pick up things, and I knew that the longer I went on without any contractions, the more unsafe it was for the baby. So come the Saturday, it'd been nearly 24 hours, no contractions. I got very nervous, so we took ourselves into the hospital. They weren't pleased, but sorry. They hooked me up to the monitor, made sure that Clark's heart was still beating, everything was still good. And they said, oh, well, no, it's fine. Nothing bad's going to happen. Just go home and wait till it all kicks off. The thing is, if your waters go, they give you up to, I think it's 48 hours. I don't know if it's the same universally, but definitely 48 hours in this country. If nothing happens, you've got to have the baby out within 48 hours, or else there's a huge risk of damage, infection, everything. So we'd already passed 24 by that point, and they said, no, if nothing kicks off, so I went home feeling really, really uneasy about it, actually. But there's nothing you can do. If the medical profession, I'm not medically trained, I worked in a hospital but only as admin receptionist, so if a medical profession says to you go home, it's okay, you trust them, don't you? Or at least at that point in my life, I didn't question things. I probably would question things now. Now I'm in my 40s and I'm older and hopefully a bit wiser, who knows. I'm gonna have to put this down again, the sun's come back. Rah. So yeah, so that was the Saturday. Into the Sunday, started feeling a little bit twingy, but again, nothing major. So I said to my ex-husband, I said, look, we really should go in because I'm getting really nervous now. It's nearly 48 hours. Phoned the hospital, said, can we come in, please? Oh, well, we haven't got a bed for you. We'll phone you back. I said, no, please, I need to come in now. So eventually they agreed. They didn't want to, but they agreed. We went in. So this was about 11 o'clock Sunday morning, and Clark was born about just gone 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So literally round about the 48-hour mark, because my waters went at about 3:15 on the Friday. The birth was tricky. He got stuck. And the midwife, I don't know whether she was just having a bad day or she wanted to get it over and done with, she yanked him by the shoulders, really quite hard, by the head and the shoulders. She yanked him, which tore me, if I'm honest. Not only reopened a wound that I had from my very first birth, but added a bit more onto it. So I was taken away. I went into shock because I lost quite a lot of blood at that point. Sorry to be graphic. Clark was taken away to be checked over. I was taken into theatre. I had to be stitched and given a blood transfusion. I was really quite poorly. It's really, really traumatic now to think about it. But yeah, but after that, everything seemed to, you know, Clark's, they always do a hearing test. They always do like a heel prick test. I can't remember exactly what they test for at that point, but the hearing test at birth was perfect. And so we were discharged after 2 or 3 days when I felt better. We went home. Everything seemed to go, you know, you're in that newborn baby bubble where everyone brings you cards and gifts and coos over the baby, and yeah, you know, it was wonderful. A few months down the road, noticed a few things that were unusual. Clark was quite I don't want to say clumsy, but Clark wasn't as strong as you would perceive a baby to be at that stage. Didn't really question it until he got to about 15 or 16 months. He wasn't walking. Didn't worry too much at that point because my other two didn't walk until 15 months each. Got to 16 months, 17 months. He finally started walking at 18 months. Now we have, I don't know if it's the same now, but I had a health visitor that would come out periodically to make sure he was still growing properly and developing and I was okay. And yep, good. And I kept saying, look, I've just got a feeling something is not quite right with Clark. No, he's fine. He's fine. All I got was he's fine. He's just being lazy. Why does he need to walk? All he's got to do is point at a toy and his brother and sister will get it for him. I got all these excuses from the health visitor. And again, you trust them. You think you know what you're talking about. Okay then. So he walked late. We got to the 2-year check, which is normally around 2 years, 4 months actually. So the 2-year check came up and I said, look, I'm really worried now about his speech. He's not really saying very much for nearly 2.5. He's saying ta, mum, dad. That's pretty much it, which that's something that you get much earlier than 2.5. You get that round about 15 to 18 months, you know. Again, oh no, he's fine. But yeah, I just couldn't shake this nagging feeling that something was not right. I've 2 older children. I have a diploma in childcare. You know, you know, and as a mum, you know when something's not right. So I took Clark to well, we don't really have them here anymore thanks to the Tory government. They've got rid of them all. We used to have things called children's centres, and they weren't doctor surgeries, but it was a place that you could go and meet other mums. You could take your child and play toys with them, read books. They could make little friends. It was very cute. It was a place to go if you were a mum. And I went to a children's centre, and luckily, by some luck, that day they had a speech therapist. So I went along to her and I said, could you just take a look at my son, because I'm really worried he's not saying much. And you know, sometimes he gets very aggressive. Even at 2.5, Clark was biting and kicking and headbutting and, you know, really quite an angry little boy, and it was really concerning. Excuse me. And she did a couple of tests, and she looked at me, she said, do you know what? She said, I think he might be deaf. And I looked at her, I'm like, you know when your jaw hits the floor, like, dunk. Excuse me now? Say what? And she said, do you know what? In my opinion, my professional opinion, I think you need to get his ears checked. She said, because a couple of tests that I've done, he hasn't responded very well. You you need to get his ears checked. And I said, but his hearing test at birth was perfect. He can hear. He definitely can hear. But she said, no, I'm not sure. You need to get him checked. So sure enough, I went to the doctor and I said, please, can you refer him to the hospital to get his ears checked on the advice of this speech therapist? Which the doctor did. To his credit, he did. The hospital, though, were, well, no, he's only 2.5. He'll talk. He'll be fine. I had to really push for 6 months for them to finally agree to a hearing test. And when they finally gave him the hearing test, they found he was 90% deaf in both ears. So all the things that we had been trying to teach him, all the letters and the numbers and the colours and the shapes, literally was falling on deaf ears. Now, the reason I'm getting teary, and I'll tell you why, because at the point that I had Clark was 2.5, I'd moved on from the pathology, the blood test lab. I'd moved on and I was working in ENT, which is the ear, nose and throat department. And very often I would see, we had a room which I called the room of doom because it was basically the bad news room. You knew, if as a receptionist, I knew that any parents that went in there were given bad news. And countless times I would be working and I would see the parents being taken in this room, and I felt bad because I knew they were going to be given some bad news of some description. And very often I would see them coming out in tears, and I felt bad for them because, you know, even though, I mean, I felt lucky because I had 3 children that were perfect, you know, in my eyes they were perfect, and I felt bad for them. But I would then go home to my family, pay my bills, you know, and over time you kind of forget about them. But one day I was that parent going into that room, and you're told, yes, your child is deaf, but what you're not prepared for is the next bit, which is, yes, he's deaf. Yes, we can do medically, we can do things to help that. However, your child is now, possibly for the rest of his life, going to have a certain degree of learning difficulties. That's why I'm teary. That conversation was hard, and that conversation was horrible, because suddenly your dream of the perfect family, I mean, Clark still is perfect, don't get me wrong, he's my best friend, he's my buddy, but suddenly the way you think your child's life is going to go, and the way you think your life is going to go, suddenly comes crashing to a halt with one conversation. It all comes down. And you're suddenly thrust onto a lifelong journey, the SEN journey, SEN, whatever you, additional needs, whatever you want to call it. It's a club which no one wants to be in. It takes a long time to accept that you're in it, and you have to find your own ways of acceptance. It's taken me a long time, if I'm honest. Clark's now 11.5. Probably it took me till he was about 7 or 8 to accept. Now, Clark, pretty soon after that diagnosis of being deaf, what we think happened is, well, we'll never know what happened, I guess, but what I like to think happened is that he had chickenpox when he was 7 months old, a really bad bout of chickenpox as well, a proper spotty McGrotty he was, and I think glue ear, something called glue ear, started off the back of that. I do sometimes wonder whether it was because I had swine flu. I'll never know, so I've had to learn to stop beating myself up about that one, because I don't know what's caused this. There's no point blaming myself any longer, because it might not even be anything to do with me. But yeah, so after we got that diagnosis of him being deaf, within 6 weeks, it was amazing. Within 6 weeks, they got him in. He had grommets, bilateral grommets inserted, which is very tiny, very, very tiny circular kind of little plugs in a way. So what they do, they make slits in the eardrums. They insert these tiny little plugs so that it allows sound to travel directly into the eardrum. Now, I'm not medical, so if you're medical and I get this wrong, I'm sorry. I suppose the sound travels in and kind of hits the bones in the ear and kind of vibrates, which I'm not technical, but I think that's the theory anyway. Oh, this blooming sun. I wish it knew. It's like up, down, up, down. So yeah, so it was amazing. He went down, he was the first one on the operating list to go down that day, because they always start with the youngest one first. So he went down at 9 o'clock. By 9:40, he was back on the ward. When he came round from the anaesthetic, it was amazing, the difference. He heard a motorbike going past quite some way away from the window, and he was like, oh, what's that? What's that? What's that? And he heard a bird, and it was like, what's that? What's that? And it was amazing. But then we had to teach him all over again what things were, you know, and he'll be playing catch up for most, if not all, of his life. He'll always be, or at least at this point, he is 2.5 years behind in development to everyone else of his age group, because he missed out on that first 2.5 years of development, because we didn't realise that he had problems with his ears. We just didn't realise. And you know, so yeah, so he's had, I mean, he's on the waiting list now for another operation. I think this will be his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. No, this will be his 6th operation, which we think he'll be having somewhere around the September, October time this year. Basically, the first operation was the grommets put in. The second operation was 15 months later. He had to have the grommets taken out because they didn't fall out like they normally are supposed to. The perforations in his eardrums didn't heal, so he had to have a skin graft on this one. These skin grafts, let me tell you, are usually 3.5 hours long, these operations. These are not little things. So he had a skin graft on that one, then he had a skin graft on that one, then this one ruptured, so he had to have another skin graft on that one, and now this one is ruptured. He's on the waiting list to have another skin graft on this one. And it's a lot for anyone, but especially for a little boy. He is so brave. He's so brave. And you know what? Throughout his life so far, you know, he's always been behind his friends. When he was little, it didn't matter so much. It didn't matter. I mean, you could tell that there were differences, for sure, for absolute sure. I keep getting terms thrown. I mean, it's naughty of me, but I say to people he's autistic. That hasn't been given as a formal diagnosis. I mean, we do know for sure that he has something called global developmental delay, which is when you are behind in 2 or more developmental areas. So we know he has global developmental delay for sure. We know he has speech and language delay. That's a result of his ears. He has autistic tendencies. He hasn't been formally diagnosed yet, but I do say he's autistic. It's, in a way, it's easier, because if you try and explain all of this to someone, they go, what? If you say, oh, he's autistic, they go, oh, okay. So it's kind of easier to explain to somebody who's not in this way of life, really. But yeah, so he's been playing catch up. I mean, he does his best. He's an absolute hoot. He's the funniest little guy. He's just and he's so loving as well. It's wonderful. So yeah, so infant school, he had a load of little friends. Unfortunately, when it came 4 years ago, when it came up to going to junior school, he left most of his little friends behind. They went to a different school. The school that they went to, I didn't want Clark to go to, because they don't really do a lot with children with needs. They don't have much there for them, and my daughter was bullied in that school and I pulled her out. So there was no way I was going to let Clark go there, to be fair. The school I did choose for him was an absolute godsend. They've been amazing. But now, and this is the point of the video, now it's time for him to leave. And today, just for one day, mind you, all day from 8:30 till, goodness me, 3 o'clock, Clark is off to high school, secondary school. Well, in England we call them secondary schools. High schools, I think, is now becoming more common here. He's off to a mainstream, a regular high school, and again, without a lot of his friends. The majority of his friends that he's made at this junior school are going to a different, or 2 or 3 other different schools. The school that Clark will be going to in September is the school that my eldest son has just left. My daughter's there. I gave Clark the choice. We looked around several schools, including a couple with units for children with additional needs. He didn't like them, and I have to say, for him, I didn't like them either. You get a sense of when something is good for your child and when it's not. And these 2 schools, although very good, not for him. And luckily he felt the same. And I had to trust Clark on this one. I had to step back and say, do you know what? This is what I think, but it's what you think that's most important. And he liked the school that my other 2 children were at. I liked it for him as well. So yeah, so he's going up to high school today for a day to see how it's going to be when he starts in September. And I'm nervous for him. He's anxious. I'm nervous because he's going to be without his friends. This is a big school. This is proper teenagers go to this school. So he's nervous about that today. You know, he's nervous because the kind of work that they'll be doing at high school, he's not ready for yet. He's still, in his mind, in his behaviour and his development, he's still on the age of about an 8-year-old child. He's not ready for, you know, things that they're going to teach him from September. He's not ready for it. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how much time the school, they do have something called inclusion, which is a department for children that need extra support and extra help. I don't know at this point how much time he'll be in inclusion, how much time he'll be in regular classes. I don't know. I'm worried that when he starts in September, he'll be given a timetable. Now, these timetables for this particular school is just a load of boxes on a page, and each individual box are codes, like letters, numbers. Now, to me, I mean, I know how the timetables work. I can see these codes. I can see instantly which teacher, which classroom, which lesson. Clark, it's just going to be a page of just jumble, just letters, numbers, shapes. He's not going to, at this point, his mind is not going to work out, oh, that's my next lesson, that's going to be my teacher, this is the classroom I need to be in, and this is how I get to it. His mind doesn't work like that. It's not so black and white for him. So I worry that he's not going to be able to decipher the timetables. I worry that he's going to get lost. The school did say that possibly they could have someone escort him between lessons. That would be amazing if that happens. I don't know at this point. So yeah, so he's going in this morning to meet his teacher. We know who she is. We found out on Friday who she is. I don't know this particular teacher. She hasn't taught my other 2 children. She only joined the school last year, so I know of her, but I don't know her. She seems very nice though. So we're going to meet the teacher today. Well, I won't meet the teacher today, he will. And then we go back in this evening for a meeting. So I think I get to meet the teacher tonight too. I hope so, because there's things I want to say to her before September. Not that I don't trust the junior school, but I I want to make sure that all the information has been passed on Clark. I don't want her to, you know, not be prepared. I don't want Clark to miss out on any help, any extra help that he's entitled to because information hasn't been passed through. Does that make sense? I want to make sure that all bases are covered here. I want to give him the best possible experience at high school. Clark has had bullying, not badly. I want to point that out, not badly, but in the last couple of years particularly, the older these children get, his peers, the older these children get, the differences are now becoming more apparent. And some of these children are not being patient with him. They're not being kind. They're not being tolerant. You know, and it's a worry when you send him off into school, and you know that's it for 6 hours, and you're not in control of that 6 hours. Other people are, and it does make you nervous. But I've got to start letting him grow up now. I've got to start trusting him. So yeah, so I'm gonna go inside now and get his uniform on. Well, I've got to wake him up, sorry. He's not awake. I've got to wake him up, get him washed, get him dressed. Well, he can dress himself, but I think today he might prefer that I do it because I think it might just be too much for him. He's very nervous. So what I will do, I'll go and get him done. I will pop... Yeah, what I was going to do, I was thinking I'll upload this video now. But what I think I might do, I might take some footage at the end of the day to show you how we got on. I'll attach it to the end of this video and you can see for yourselves, well, not in real time, but you can see the progression of the day and the life of a special needs mum. Just never know which way it's going to go. And I keep my fingers crossed for Clark. His personality, if anything, he may not do very well at school, but I at this point, I mean, this is why I say today's a big day. I had a consultant, when I was told that Clark was deaf, I had a consultant tell me he'll never amount to anything. He'll be a dunce, you know, there's no other way to put it. He'll be stupid. He'll be a Forrest Gump. He'll be a dunce for the rest of his life, and he won't get a job. He won't have a relationship. He won't get married. He won't have children. He probably won't even be able to live in his own house. He won't be independent. He'll just be a burden on you for the rest of your life. And that conversation stung, if I'm honest. And this is why I'm so proud of Clark, and I love showing him off, because every day he surprises me, and every day he is just such an inspiration. He gets up, puts the biggest smile on his face, and yeah, he's just amazing, and I'm so privileged that he's mine. And so, actually, do you know what? No, I think I'll upload this video now, because I'm so proud of him, and I want you guys all to know if you don't already. And I will post something a little bit later on today, in a few hours, and I'll let you know how he got on. And hopefully, fingers crossed, he has the most amazing day. And I will let you all know later. Take care. Bye for now.